Welcome to Nevertheless, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you will discover how to discern your essence and live powerful.
Hi guys, welcome to Nevertheless, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. I'm sure you missed me last week. I'm sorry I couldn't put together a show. My younger brother got married and we had to go out of town. It was fun, and I sat there and I was looking at I was watching him and his bride and all the things that they had to go through. I could see the excitement. And after 19 years in marriage and knowing how the story of marriage can be, even though I thank God that I personally have a good marriage, I couldn't help but think about the middle of our dreams. Because what I saw Innocent, my brother, go through last weekend was he finally was getting a piece of his dream. And if you thought my brother was excited, wait until you see his wife and the excitement. And I also even was looking at the faces of the parents, and I could see, some level of satisfaction in their faces that, our children have done well. So I came back from out of state thinking about us and our dreams, because they're like going to take a bride, all the hurdles you have to cross to start the process. And I was wondering, to myself, what do you do when you get right in the middle of this thing called dream chasing? In the Bible, there's a story that I want to put out today. But before I get to the point of what is this that we're talking about today, of course, congratulations to Innocent and his bride. It's a pleasure to have you in our family, and we know that you will be a great addition to all the things that God has blessed us with. Welcome. When I come back, I want us to talk about what we did the previous week, and then after that we'll go on to today's show. Once again, it's Bidemi Mark-Mordi, and the show is Nevertheless.
Introducing Dukia Radio, a new online purpose and leadership talk radio for the family. Follow us on Twitter at Dukia Radio and like our Facebook page, Dukia Radio. Dukia Radio, giving life full expression. Coming soon.
Welcome back. It's still the Nevertheless show, and my name still remains BMM. That's what my friends call me. I was talking to you about the reason why I couldn't send the show up last weekend, and I talked to you about my brother getting married and how that triggered a thinking about the middle of a journey for me. But before we get into talking about that in depth today, I want to review for us what it was that we did the previous week, the dangers of low expectations. And I remember that I was talking to us about how you come across some people and you can tell even from the first sentence that what they claim to believe that they will get, they actually don't believe it. And I began to talk about how all of that plays out in how we eventually our lives pan out, or our dreams, make progress or not make progress. I also gave some reasons why low expectations happen, and I remember talking about how to raise your expectation. The question is, how has that helped you? Because everywhere I turn, I hear about harsh economic climate. People are talking about the things that are wrong. It is very sparingly you hear anyone these days say, things are working out well. Everyone has a complaint, from economic complaints to national political complaints. The things are all over the place. And so I can't help but think, when you put all of this together, when you raise your expectations and something isn't doing quite go the way it's supposed to go, what do you do? What do you do when you begin a journey and somewhere in what my coach Michael Hyatt calls the messy middle, you begin to get in trouble? What do you do when that very beautiful bride that you took one day just begins to give trouble at home? What do you do? What do you do when that handsome dude you got married to is the reason why you are shedding tears at night? What do you do? What do you do when your very exciting dream from 5 years ago comes against a hindrance or a setback? What do you do? The truth of the matter is that the dream life is not a bed of roses. Things will happen as you try to push your dream. But the question I want us to take a look at is, do you give up because the middle is now messy? Or do you do your best to push through? In the book of 1 Samuel, there's a story by a man known as David. David is the one that the Bible records as the man after God's own heart. David started his journey, at least we saw him start his journey in the Bible as a teenager. David was the one that slew Goliath, the giant that everyone was afraid of. But David, before all of this, and even later, was just an ordinary person like you and me, who chanced upon a dream. So David chanced upon a dream, and the truth of the matter is, what got David in his first major trouble was because he had a dream, because he was anointed. He had been called to become the king in place of King Saul. And that was the reason the king at the time, Saul, started to chase after David to kill him. So before we knew what was happening, David, who had now been brought into the palace because the anointing was upon his head, was now a fugitive. I'm talking to you about that dream that you went around to tell people about. The day of the launch, everybody came. It was very exciting. Everyone had something good to say about you. The press was there. Everyone was there. Then they left. Then the reality of your life and the dream started to come to your attention. I'm talking to you about those times when no amount of PR can fix what it is that you are dealing with. I read recently somewhere what entrepreneurs face, because once you become a dreamer, ultimately 9 times out of 10 you end up as an entrepreneur. And in this study that I read, it was a collation of interviews of entrepreneurs across the United States of America and Europe. And what I saw in a nutshell in that report is the fact that the suicide rate for entrepreneurs is high. Because here is what people say, and I believe them, it is very lonely at the top. Once you become a dream chaser, at some point, no one can feel the pain of what you face but you. So the question again that I'm trying to help us answer today, and hopefully we will answer it well, is what do you do when you get into the middle? But before I answer the question, when I come back, let's take a look at why we even get into the messy middles at all.
Are you frustrated and tired of life? Do you feel trapped in life's maze and don't seem to find your way? Or are you passionate about your purpose and destiny and want to find out more? Then get a copy of DNA. DNA, Destiny Navigational Application, is a book written by Bidemi Mark-Mordi, where she coaches you to distill the answer to the cry of purpose, mandate, and significance. She teaches you how to discern your essence, discover your God-given mandate, deploy power, and demonstrate dominion. Get a copy of Destiny Navigational Application from any bookstore near you, or call 234-813-360-2883, or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmodi.com to place your order now.
Welcome back. It is still the Nevertheless Show. The question I asked before the break was, what do you do when you get into the messy middle? But beyond that, what is it that causes messy middles? Sometimes you get into setbacks or messy middles because of a bad decision. This week, for instance, I've had to deal with one bad decision of my own. And to be able to rise to the plate and take decisive action was one of the most painful things I've had to do this year. But in the end, if I wanted to continue this journey, I had to make that decision and I had to rise to the plate and take action. So my point is, the first cause of setbacks on the journey to destiny could be a bad decision. And when I say a bad decision, I'm not saying you deliberately thought something negative or made a negative decision. I'm saying bad decisions comprise of those decisions that you did not thoroughly check before you made them. Some of those decisions you did not check thoroughly before you made. Or some of these decisions that we make emotionally. The one I had to deal with this week was an emotional decision. It was something I had seen coming. It was something I should have just pushed and dealt with over time. But I kept thinking, no, emotionally it's going to be painful. Ultimately, when it started to adversely impact upon my bottom line, I had to do something. So that's a bad decision. I didn't set out to make a bad decision, but it turned out to be one bad decision. So your setback or your messy middle could be as a result of bad decisions. But there is also that setback that happens because of what we call extenuating circumstances. Nothing that had anything to do with you. It just happened. Like the economic circumstances that most of us are facing today. It's not any man's direct making. But the economy of the world looks like it's just been tossed out of the window. So most of us in our dreams and our businesses are having to deal with things that we did not cause. In Nigeria, for instance, most of us who are in probably the importation business are dealing with a serious debt of foreign exchange. And so because of that, people are having to take two steps back to ask themselves, what else can I do to keep my dream going? The point is, you cannot say because you have hit a snag that you're going to give up. The Bible says it like this. It says, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. You are not that person that should give up. If you truly believe that this is your dream, the way I see it is you have to find a way to deal with it. It's like a river that's flowing to a particular destination and midway hits a rock. I have never heard that the river begins to flow back upwards. Rather, what the river does is the river would find a way and channel its energy and make sure that it continues on this journey. The dreamer is like that. When you hit a snag, you need to take 2 steps back and ask yourself, how do I forge forward? But you see, forging forward has to be done intelligently, which is what most of us don't get to do. You just take decisions and then you find out in the end that you are not able to push through, or you make hasty decisions. This is not the economy in which people make hasty decisions. Ask me, I got burnt recently, so I can tell you that it's not an economy you make hasty decisions. So in 1 Samuel chapter 30, what happened? David had become a fugitive and a mercenary. For him to keep body and soul together for himself and his men and his family, he had become a mercenary soldier. So people or nations would contract him and his men to fight on their behalf. And then when they win the war, they will give them spoils of war. That was how David and his men were living. In this particular story in 1 Samuel chapter 30, David and his men had just returned from a battle against the Philistines, or a battle on behalf of the Philistines actually. And the Bible said they came back to Ziklag. And by the time they got to Ziklag, which was their camp, where their families were, where everything they ever owned were, they realized that their wives and their children and the weak amongst them that were left behind when the men went to battle had been taken captive by the Amalekites. That's a huge setback. When you go to battle, you win the battle, but you come back and you find that everything that you left is lost or seems to be lost. The Bible said David was so discouraged, especially because the men that came back with him could not understand what had happened. So they turned on him. It's one thing to be in a bad state in your dream work. It's another to have your team turn against you. But that was the peculiar situation that David was facing. So what did David do? The first thing that David did, which is what you will do if you do find yourself in a messy middle, is to encourage yourself. Encourage yourself. Let me just break it down for you. Do you realize that not everyone is able to do what you're doing? It takes a special kind of grace and strength to be able to transact at the pedestal at which you are transacting. So it's no mean feat, the thing that you are doing. What that means is you cannot therefore get knocked down because something happened, because the economy is not playing ball with you, or because someone said something that isn't quite true but has come to hurt your business, or because something you made a decision that you shouldn't have made and now it's biting you. You are having to pay seriously for it. I always like to be able to give myself a pat on the back. And what I want to encourage you to do today is give yourself a pat on the back. That you are even in the playing field at all is an achievement. Encourage yourself. But peculiarly, David encouraged himself by looking at the things that had happened before to him as setbacks and how he had surmounted them. So you can also take a look at your past and the things that looked like mountains in front of you before and somehow you were able to bring down. Encourage yourself in the Lord. After David encouraged himself in the Lord, the second thing he did was he inquired of the Lord. What that means is he did his due diligence. Do your due diligence. Ask yourself what went wrong. Make sure you go through a thorough analysis of what it is that you can do to ensure that you can come out of this. Be very objective when you are doing your due diligence. David inquired of the Lord, and his question was simple. Do I chase after these people? Because sometimes you get into a messy middle and you begin to think, I need to do a course correction. Let me just tweak a few things and see if I can continue to move. When what you actually need to do is a course redirection. I was telling someone yesterday and I was trying to give an example. And maybe only Nigerians will understand this, but it was the easiest example that came to mind. Assuming that you had wanted to do what we call akara. Akara is bean pudding, and you had sent someone to go to to blend or to grind your beans for you. When you are doing, you're preparing akara as a meal, you have to be very careful with the consistency. Otherwise, if it becomes too watery, you will not be able to get the bean pudding balls that you are looking for. So imagine that you send someone to do the grinding of your beans for you, and they put too much water that you lose the consistency. It doesn't matter how hard you try, you can almost not do a course correction there. You can almost never end up with akara again. But does that mean that your bowl of beans is now useless? No. Because if you do a course redirection, what could happen is that bowl of beans that had been ground, but the consistency is too watery for you to use for akara. You can use to do another kind, or you can use to prepare another kind of bean pudding known as moi moi. With moi moi, because there's a way we wrap, sometimes we use bowls. It is easier to be able to use even very watery bean paste to prepare that meal. What I'm saying is not every setback that you can easily just correct and continue to move on the same course that you have started. Some of them you have to change lanes completely. So when you do your due diligence, what happens is you can tell whether this beans is still fit for akara or whether it is now fit for moi moi. Do your due diligence. When I come back, I'll come to you with other things that David did that you can also do so that you can continue on your journey to dreamland.
In a world filled with many fears and discouragements, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life's just simple. Don't worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi shares powerful insights and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, Nevertheless. Nevertheless is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of Nevertheless from a bookstore near you or call 234-813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimark-mordi.com to place your order now. I guarantee you will make it nevertheless.
Welcome back. I said to you that David encouraged himself in the Lord, and David inquired of the Lord, or he did his due diligence. He wanted to know whether pursuing after the Amalekites was going to yield a positive result, because it doesn't make sense to begin to pursue if in the end you will just lose that which you even have conserved. So, but David did receive the green light from God that he could go on and pursue, and the Lord promised him that he would recover all. So David, in that particular instance, decided to go on, but he didn't go alone. He solicited help. The Bible says he took with him some, I think 600 men or so. He took with him. That meant that David asked for support. Sometimes when you are the one living the dream and you are right in the middle of it, you can't see what else you can do. But if you ask for help or you solicit for support, the tendency is, because the people you're going to ask for help are not enmeshed in the situation as you are, they are able to give you suggestions or counsel that will help you walk around your messy middle. So you need to solicit help. So David didn't go by himself to chase after the Amalekites. Even though the same men had said, some of them had said that they wanted to stone him, David still took those ones with him who were willing to go with him. So ask for support. Someone may just have that thing you need to accelerate your dream. The fourth thing that David did and you can do is to keep your eyes open for unlikely help. David was on his way chasing after the Amalekites who had taken captive his wives and his children. But on the way, the Bible said he chanced upon a slave who had been left for dead by the Amalekites. And David stopped and gave him food and water, restored him back to health. And that became the key to David's breakthrough. I am a firm believer in the fact that if God is the one that has called you to get something done, it doesn't matter what your circumstances become like, God always will place help somewhere along the way so that you can continue the journey. So don't be too focused on making it back to dreamland that you lose sight of your surroundings or what is happening around you. You must be very quick to understand the terrain that you are in. For instance, this week I had to go see someone I call a big brother who had been in the importation business in Nigeria for a very long time. But with the high exchange rate and the lack or the scarcity of foreign exchange in our nation, he has had to diversify. And because he's done his due diligence and he's been talking to people, guess where he's now playing? He's playing and playing big too in real estate. So when you have done your due diligence and you have sought for support, you should open your eyes to know what else it is that you can do. Remember our Akara and Moi Moi example. The fact that you are from a particular part of Nigeria and maybe you don't make Moi Moi is not a staple in your diet does not mean that you cannot ask other people what else you could do with a watery bowl of beans. So keep your eyes open. David noticed the servant that was left for dead. And because he had the presence of mind to show him compassion and to nurse him back to health, when the guy was strong enough, the guy was the one that gave them the intelligence or the intel on where they could find the Amalekites. And that was how David caught up with the people. Sixth point, David asked the right questions. So when you get in the messy middle, rather than be holding pity parties, be quick to ask the right questions. What questions are you asking? What questions are you asking? So David asked the slave, who are you? And in asking those questions, he realized that he is one of the ones that had come with the Amalekites to take his wives and children captive. And the funny thing is, David could have reacted in anger and taken the head off this man's shoulders just because he was one of the people who came to take his family captive. But instead of doing that, what did David do? David asked him, where can I find the people that I'm looking for? This speaks to focus. When you are in the middle and it becomes messy, know what your objective is. And even when you are presented with distractions, don't lap them. Keep your focus. So because David asked the right questions and he was focused on catching up with the Amalekites and fighting for freedom for his wives and children and those of his men, he was able to get the intelligence that he required from this slave, and he pursued after the people. The Bible said that because of this tenacity, David caught up with them, he overpowered them, and he recovered all. Do you know that as messy as the middle is today, if you hold on, you are bound to recover all? David didn't give up. Do not give up. I know the economy is hard. You don't need to tell me. I know. We can see it. But have you stopped to ask yourself what else you can do with your gift right now that will produce? Maybe yes, you've been playing in a particular field and it's not yielding much right now because of the economic terrain. How about you diversified? I've talked here about streams of income, that when the Lord gives us, every gift that God has given to us has the capacity to provide for us 4 different streams of income at least. So maybe it's because you're not talking to the right people. Maybe it's because you're not looking beyond where you have fallen. Because if you do, you'll be amazed at all the things that you can do so that you can continue to move. I dare say that as bad as this economy is, there are people who are smiling to the bank. Why can't that be you? So don't give up. Ask the right questions. And I promise you, in due time, if you faint not, you shall recover all. Final thing that David did was when David came back home, there were some of the men that refused to go with him to battle. Yet David shared with them the spoils of war. Because you come out of a messy middle and someone else is still there does not mean that you can't give them a hand so that they can get up or arise from where they have fallen. We've been looking at how to deal with the messy middle, and we have been looking at the template of the story of David in 1 Samuel chapter 30. When we come back, I will do a short recap of what we've said so far. Please don't go away.
Introducing Dukia Radio, a new online purpose and leadership talk radio for the family. Follow us on Twitter at Dukia Radio and like our Facebook page, Dukia Radio. Dukia Radio, giving life full expression. Coming soon.
Welcome back. In dealing with your messy middles, here are the steps again. 1, encourage yourself. Recognize that the fact that you are in the playing field is a plus, not a minus, because so many people have not been able to even get up, let alone do what you've done. At least you are in the middle. How about those who haven't started? The second thing that David did, and I'm encouraging you to do, is to do your due diligence. Ask questions. Do your due diligence. Do your analysis properly. The third thing David did was he asked for support. No man is an island, is what they say. Sometimes what you can't see because you're the one that is falling down, the other man, because he's still standing and he still has strength in him, is able to see. If you just ask for his support, he may be able to help you. The fourth thing that David did was he kept his eyes open for help in unlikely places. Not everything is as it seems. Don't be so focused on chasing after, going, getting up and getting to where you need to go that you do not see your surroundings. Because your surroundings may just hold the answers to the problems that plague your middle. David also asked the right questions. What questions are you asking? You must ask the right questions if you will get the right answers. And David recovered all. And my prayer for you today is you will recover all. But after David recovered all, David was also responsible to the other people who didn't even go with him on the trip. So when you recover all and you come, one of the things that you would have done is that you have gained experience that others don't have. Remember to help them. After all, someone helped you too. This has been our show for this week. And I want to take the time to say thank you to all those ones who sent in their purpose questions. If you have not sent the purpose question, remember that you can send me an email, bidemi@bidemimark-mordi.com, or you can just follow me on Twitter @bidemimark-mordi and use the hashtag #AskBMM. Send me your purpose questions. And I can tell you something, Purpose University is beginning to cook up. It's gathering momentum, and very soon you will see signs that we are serious about what it is that we want to do. Also, Dukia Radio will begin to test run at some point next week. However, our app is not live on the iTunes store yet, but it is live on the Android store, the Google Play Store. So please, if you have an Android device, go there and download the app. And when we go live next week, I'll let you know. And I would expect that you will be able to give us feedback on what else we can do to make it better. It's been a pleasure bringing this show your way. Thank you so much for hanging with me. Never forget that when you discover purpose, you live powerful.
Thank you for listening to Nevertheless. For more information and resources, call 0813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimark-mordi.com. Don't forget that when you discover your purpose, you will live powerful.